welcome to You Made That? A podcast. Nice face there. A podcast about makers, making, and the things that we make. Today we have a special guest host, Mr. Pat Carroll from across the pond.
Woo!
Woohoo!
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And as always, we have Bob Blanford and Rebecca DeGroot along with us. So why don't we get started talking about what we're working on? And let's start with Pat, since he's new to us. Pat, what have you been working on this week? Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
We lost your microphone.
We can get started with somebody else if you want.
Okay, am I back?
Oh, there he is.
Yeah, you're
Okay.
back.
As I said, I've been working with technology this week, and as you just gathered from that last moment in time, it isn't going very well, so... yeah. I have several projects on the go at once. I always do. Mainly the series of work that I'm working on is the erosion series, so I have some of those pieces on the go. I sent Rebecca some pictures, and it's basically just turning tin wall vessels and piercing holes and then texturing and pyrography combined to get the effect I want on those pieces. So.
These are the pieces that look like rusted metal?
Exactly, yeah.
Oh, I love those things.
Yeah.
I had to look at the first piece that I saw that I swore it was steel. You know, just rusted steel, and I was wondering, why is a woodworker working with steel? And it wasn't until I found two or three other pieces that looked like that I finally convinced myself, no, that's really wood. So.
There are people out there that do not believe it is actually timber. So, you know, I have gotten some chicken mesh, and just rolled it up in a ball and let it go rusty. So, yeah. If it was only that easy.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But it's a process I'm enjoying, and it's leading into other work as well, so it's good.
Very nice. Bob, what do you got going on?
Well, you'll remember a couple of weeks ago I talked about blowing up a couple of blanks in the shop. I had an opportunity this past week to work on those blanks. Was able to find and actually implement a fix for both of them. I recorded them. One of them's already out on the channel. The other one will be out in a few days when the video is finished. I was working on some custom Chevron blanks and just finished those up yesterday. Shot a video on that and had an accident as I was shooting the video that turned out to be quite nice. I found that when I slid those 6 blanks, I had made 6 blanks. When I slid them together, they gave almost a 3D pattern, kind of like the 3D cutting board with the blocks on it. And for some reason in my mind, I never even thought about that. So I decided to go ahead and glue them together into a larger block and then cut them lengthways to give kind of like the Charlie Brown on the bottom of his on his shirt. So that'll be what goes down the blank. So I'll have the zigzag effect. So I'm working on that, which is I think is gonna look pretty cool. I'm excited about giving it a try. And then I started experimenting with a checkerboard inlay blank. I'm putting together, it's a maple and walnut checkerboard, very small squares, and then I will put Paduke on the outside of the checkerboard effect to produce sort of an inlaid checkerboard blank. That is an experiment. That's an experiment right now. I'm not filming that. Just want to make sure it's going to work out before I put any time, because filming slows you down so much. But if it works out, we'll come back and do a video on that one.
The video of the plank that blew up, that was the crayon pen?
Yeah, it sure was. And it really didn't, well, I blew a section out of it, and I was able to fix the section, and I was able to eliminate the line. Of course, the chunk came out, so you got a line. It's like a V. You got a line on both sides, and I was able to eliminate one of the lines. The other I wasn't, but I was able to put the clip over it and hide it. And then the 2 chips that were missing, luckily, after a little bit of measurement, I found that I had some play in the blank, and I was able to take it down on the disc sander, just that little tiny amount on either end, and clean it up. So it was a simple fix, but it was effective, and I think people really enjoy seeing, if you have an issue like that, they enjoy seeing the fix, because most people do face those type of issues in their shop, and they want to know what to do, and I think it helps people out.
I know you say the clip will hide it. I almost recommended that as a name for the podcast.
The clip will hide it.
The clip will hide it.
Oh, man, that would have been a good one.
Yeah, but then we would have been kind of limited to just pen making.
Yeah,
so.
we didn't want to do that. We didn't want to do that.
And Rebecca, any new dinosaurs to report this week?
No new dinosaurs, but I have a kind of comment on Bob's story about kind of the mistakes that have been made in the shop. Did you catch those mistakes on video? Because I have a fun story from this weekend.
I sure did. And I'm looking forward to your story. Yes, please.
Okay, so if you follow me on Instagram, I think maybe I posted it on Facebook too. I had a story on the Instagram platform of me kind of like stabbing into some resin. There's a foreign object stuck in the resin. Did you guys happen to see that?
I did.
Yeah,
I'm going to watch it.
It was not a mushroom. Everybody thinks it's a mushroom just because I've been so obsessed with mushrooms, and I'll get to that when I talk about what I've been working on. I was mixing resin for a new hybrid blank. And I've got those nice little, very, very super concentrated dyes that unless you cut the tip all the way off to the end, you have to squeeze it really hard. Can you guys, do you see where this is going?
I can see where this is going, yeah.
So I'm squeezing the bottle of dye into my resin, and I intended to put about 2 drops. Well, about 2/3 of the bottle went into the resin. And the cap, that part that just like inserts into it, that should not be able to come out, in my opinion. Why? Why does that come out? But it does, along with most of the most of the dye in that bottle. And by the time I was done closing the pressure pot to be able to add the pressure to it, by the time I was done, that cup that was full of resin was completely solidified. It was awful. So bad. So that foreign object that I was stabbing with my tongue depressor was the cap that came flying off with the rest of it. But I got it on camera. It's really unfortunate I didn't get my face on camera because it was just like, oh no, this is not good. Because it was about 1/3 of the resin that I was actually mixing up to make this blank. I was like, no. And then I only just had enough resin to cover the top of the burls that I was casting too. It was, it was a learning experience. I think I'm going to have to cut way back on the tips of those little applicator bottles. I don't know. Anyways, that was really interesting. And it did get caught on camera. Haven't looked at it yet. I don't want to remind myself anymore of what happened. But it's not a mushroom. Everybody keeps thinking it's a mushroom. But, so, anyways, back to what I'm working on. I have found myself... Huh?
Just so that we can capture your reactions when something like that happens, we should outfit you with one of those Blair Witch Project cameras. The ones that are always looking at your face, no matter what you're doing.
I need that. I've been told I have a very expressive face.
No, you don't have an expressive face at all.
No. I also turn pink really fast when embarrassing things happen, so, you know. So I've been actively, intentionally working on mushrooms though. So I have a variety of mushroom bodies that I've been making. So they start with kind of the standing bodies that are straight, perpendicular to the ground, very simple forms. And I posted one of them on my Instagram page yesterday. And then they kind of evolve into this still simple flat base, kind of a bulbous body, and then a curved neck, which I carved with our fantastic sponsors product, Sabertooth. And, I do have something to say about the sponsors, but I'll get to that. So I carved the neck to make it kind of that leaning look. And then I have another form where it doesn't have a flat body. It's actually got a pointed base with a curved neck that I haven't finished one of these yet because it's still kind of in production, but it's going to be a wall mounted mushroom and they're going to probably be in sets of 2. So I've been making these really interesting kind of abstract geometric plaque forms that they're just going to be pinned into with some brass rod. And then the last one is going to be the walking mushrooms, and I haven't posted the pictures of them yet, but I took a couple of them yesterday, and I almost want to wait until I have all of the walking mushrooms done. But I do this thing where I get really excited about a piece, and I start one of them, and then I make 50 of them, and then I never finish any of them because I'm so excited about it. I was like, well, I've got to finish all of them before I can post any pictures of any of them. And I was like, I need to stop doing that, because then I have a pile of mushroom bodies and nothing to show for it, because I'm just sitting waiting to finish literally all of them, and this has been taking me weeks to do. So I've been obsessed with mushrooms. So I burnt a bunch of the caps yesterday, and I've been assembling, and it's just been a lot of fun. And if you follow my personal Instagram page, you'll see kind of the progression of just like even the setup I have for finishing the bodies, because they're such a weird shape and you can't just set them on a board and finish them for the most part. You have to actually like figure out a way to suspend them and get a nice finish all the way around them. So I've actually been taking extra of the brass rod and drilling a 16th inch hole into the neck of the mushroom, and then just sticking the brass rod on there, and then having another 16th inch hole in a board. So then they're just kind of like suspended from these little brass rods all over this board. So it's interesting. It's fun. It's a process I think a lot of people maybe won't think of, even though it's super simple. But yeah, that's what I've been doing. But, our sponsor has officially added a discount code to their website. So if you go to sabretooth.com, you will be able to get 10% off of any online purchase, as far as I know. That's what she said anyways. Yeah, 10% off just by entering YMT. They went with the short version. They liked that one. So if you enter YMT for You Made That podcast, you'll be able to get 10% off. And Pat, you use Sabretooth on a lot of your stuff too.
I use Sabretooth for a lot of my texturing and carving. Great tools. So is that code only applicable your side of the pond?
You know, she didn't say. I will check on that. I hope that I, as far as I know, it's just all online orders, but I'll check with her to make sure. Oh, and we have swag. We have sponsor swag. They sent me a bunch of coffee mugs and t-shirts and a ton of stickers. So we might be able to start having some giveaways and sending some cool stuff out.
Nice.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Getting sponsors is very important, isn't it? Because just the other venture I'm running, the Meet the Turner, every little helps, as you know. People think there's no expense with these things. Like the equipment we need, and our packages, the Zoom and whatever. So yeah, every bit helps, doesn't it? So
yes, it does.
And I don't know if we're going to be talking about this later in the podcast, Michael, if you had intended on it, but Pat's got a recording later this same day.
Oh,
right?
Yeah, we were definitely going to be talking about that.
Okay, all right, I'll wait. I need my own sign. Pat, I told you I was going to bring it up at one point.
Problem is, she won't put it up for herself.
Because I forget. You have to remind me to put up my own word vomit sign, or I'll make a version and send one to everyone.
There you go.
It'll be great.
brilliant.
Well, I have been out in the shop working on a project this week, but it's been a whole bunch of the F word.
Oh.
Flat work.
Oh no.
I posted some pictures on Instagram today on my personal account. It's just some disinfecting wipe holders for work. They were needing to put some wipes at each work center, and everything they were finding online, the cheapest one they found online was $50 a piece for just a holder for disinfecting wipes. And that would have been over $1,000 to put them at each work center. I was like, that's crazy. I can make them for much less than that. So that's what I did.
See, you did the noble thing making them. See, for me, they would have cost them $1,000 to make them. It would have probably cost me $2,000 in time and materials to make it the way I work. So you're obviously a far better flat work woodworker than I am.
I don't know about that. I finally finally figured out how to get a square cut using the fence on my saw. I don't know if any of you have any experience with a Cobalt job site saw, but the fence on it sucks.
I have experience with Cobalt in general, and I think I can see where you're coming from.
Well, I've got other Cobalt tools. I've got a couple of drills that I love. There's an impact driver. It's great. But this job site saw, the saw itself is fine, but the fence is... You know how most of the time on saws, even on some job site saws, the fence is affixed to the rear of the saw. So it's always perpendicular to the blade. You move it in front, lock it down in front, and you're always square. This one has two locks, one in the back, one in the front.
Ooh.
And it doesn't stay on the saw. You take it off the saw when you store it.
Yeah.
So it...
Too much variations.
Yeah. But the other thing that goes along with that is it has a sled that will allow you to extend out and get longer cuts with the fence on it. So what I did is I put the fence up against the blade, right up on it, and then left it in place and just moved the sled and used a tape measure to measure the distance from the fence to the saw blade. And it worked perfectly.
You know, there are some aftermarket fences that are not that expensive that might help you with that problem. They actually, I've got one for a bandsaw that is way too big for my bandsaw, but it's a couple of bars. You bolt one on the front, one on the back, and it's kind of like a Bismarck fence or something, and you can just like lock it and move it. It's very accurate. It's too big for my bandsaw. So if either one of you has a larger bandsaw and needs a fence, I'd be more than happy to ship it to you. It's brand spanking new.
I've already got the Craig fence on mine, and I love it.
Oh, that's a nice one.
Yeah, I have a site saw like that, Michael, and I have the same issue with it, just to make sure that the fence stays straight. If I'm ripping down boards and like that, I have to measure from the blade. And if there's too much of a variant in it, it can bind on the wood, as I'm sure you know by now. And it's dangerous, basically. So
yeah, it can be. I've had a couple of kickbacks on that saw that have been nasty.
If you think about those job site saws, they technically don't have to be that accurate, because if you've ever done construction on homes, you can be a quarter inch, a half inch off, and you're still fine. You know, you just gotta get the wood cut. So I think they do that to cut on the expense, and they don't spend a lot of money on the accessories like the fence and some of the other items on the saw. There really is. You know, you've got your job site saw, then you got your medium range, then you got your high end stuff, and you really need to be minimum in the medium range there to get. That's where I am with my saw. I don't have a high end saw. I've got a medium range saw, but it actually does a pretty good job. When you lock it, it's accurate front to back. You know, so for me, I've been fairly lucky.
Well, you know,
also the problem. Sorry, go ahead, Bob.
No, go ahead, Pat. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, basically, those site saws, because you are physically hauling them around from site to site, they do get knocked about, and you know the accuracy does start to move. You have to check those things regular. So, yeah.
Oh, you know, I have that massive shop of mine, all 102 square foot. So I don't really have the room for a saw like you have. There's no place for me to put it. So the job site was my only alternative.
No, it makes sense.
Unfortunately. But enough about me. We're here to talk about Pat today.
Yay!
So for those of you who may not be aware of Pat, Pat is a fairly accomplished woodturner in Wales, correct? In Wales?
No, wrong country. Ireland.
Oh,
Ireland.
Ireland.
Am I on the wrong day?
I am so sorry about that.
I blame Rebecca.
I think I may have just insulted Pat. I'm very sorry about that.
No, you just insulted the Welsh. Oh, don't worry, Michael. I've heard worse. Don't worry.
So for those of you who would be interested in seeing some of Pat's work, you can see it at www.patcarrollwoodturning.com. I believe you also have an Instagram account too, correct?
Yes, Pat Carroll _woodturning.
Okay.
I don't do too much on Instagram, to be quite honest. Facebook more so. Just Pat Carroll Woodturning. You'll find me there.
So Pat has been turning since about 2001. His day job is a professional builder and carpenter. So the turning is actually a side gig for you, or like a side hustle?
Oh yeah, I like to call myself a serious hobbyist, not serial. Yeah, so yeah, it's a passion, and I just love being involved in all the aspects of it. So
tell me about how you got started in wood turning.
Well, just to backtrack a little bit, my family, my father and two brothers were butchers, and of course the thoughts were Pat will be a butcher as well. And as some people would say, I butcher wood, because I can see Rebecca's face probably thinking that there. But I started out working on the buildings, and I was what we call labouring, as in waiting on 2 plasterers, actually 3, because a friend of mine was moving to the UK then for work. And when his position became available, I started to learn how to plaster and mixing plaster for these other 2 guys. So back then on the building sites here, if you had to put in door frames, window boards or whatever, and the carpenter wasn't available, there was no such thing as picking up your phone to ring him. I'm not that old, by the way, but you had to either put in these items yourself, do the carpentry skills, or go home at the loss of a day's pay till somebody did it. So plastering you had to take in a lot of the carpentry things that were needed, and I always loved carpentry because my granddad was a carpenter handyman, so I think that's where my love of woodwork in general came from. So and then I found out about wood turning, and I did some classes with a local man here by the name of Willie Stedman, who was one of the founders of the Irish Woodturners Guild. And after that then I had a break in it. I just did a couple of classes with Willie, but just down to work commitments and everything else, I just couldn't pursue it. But in 2001, I think it was, I purchased a record lathe, set up the workshop, and I really went for it. And then as I was progressing through it, I realised there was something wrong here, and I was having an issue with the lathe, not the record. It was a component of the lathe. And I said, right, and I just felt kind of disillusioned with the whole thing after a period of time. And I said, I'm either going to go all for it or give it up. So I purchased a Vicmark lathe in 2003, and that was the game changer for me. So I just went at hammer and tongue. So
that brand of lathe is like the big boy lathe in Ireland?
Yeah.
Then?
Okay,
Well,
so that's like the one way here in the U.S. That's Vicmark is a serious lathe. Very nice.
Yeah, it's a fantastic piece of equipment, and I've used the one ways in all of them, all the other lathes, but it's just personal preference. I prefer the Vicmark. So so I actually have 4 of them here in my workshop. So I just like them so much.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I see that you list one of your big breakthroughs as being learning to sharpen the tool correctly and making your first streams of shavings. How did that make the difference for you?
Oh, that eureka moment, Michael. You know, when the tool is bouncing all over the place and it's beating you up badly when you're trying to turn a bowl, and, you know, all the mishaps that were occurring. And definitely getting some tuition was a big turning point. I was learning how to get there to a point, and then I met Jimmy Clues in 2005 or 6. I attended what we call our seminars over here, and I got to know Jimmy, became very good friends with Jimmy, and in 2007, 8 and 9, Jimmy came over to my workshop in a previous home I lived in, and a group of us got together. We all got our lathes into my workshop, 7 of us, and Jimmy came over for the 3 consecutive years and did some hands-on tuition. And that was a big turning point in honing the skills that we thought we knew. So, and I always say to people, you know, let your first expense be tuition, not tools or machinery. Let it be tuition, because that person will either they should guide you to what type of turning that they feel suitable to you at the time, and point you in the right direction of the correct equipment. Because people buy lathes and they just want to have this long machine with a big motor, and they don't put much more thought into it when they're starting out. Sometimes some of the small compact MIDI lathes will give them everything they ever need for what they need to make. So yeah, tuition first and foremost.
All right. With that, the tuition of learning how to sharpen your tools, are you sharpening using jigs, or do you sharpen by hand?
I use both.
Okay.
The way some of the, shall we say, the more proficient turners frown upon people using jigs, I would much rather spend my time at the lathe with a sharp tool than at the grinder trying to sharpen it freehand. Now, I do sharpen some of the tools I use with freehand, but I also use for the long grinds, such as the Irish grind, I use a jig.
And what would an Irish grind be?
The swept-back wings.
Okay.
Yeah. You guys call it the Ellsworth grind over there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I've been trying to accomplish that on my bowl gouge, and I haven't quite got it yet. I need to get out to this. I got a little nervous because as I was sharpening, I was cooling the tool, and I got a little nervous because I saw the tool start to darken at one point. I thought, oh, shoot, I'm going to destroy the temper. So I stopped,
Yeah.
And I'm using low speed, but, taking it from the factory grind and then getting the swept back takes a lot of time.
If you look at Doug Thompson sharpening tools on YouTube, Doug will show you very easily how to rectify a bad chisel as well, but also how to get that with it freehand even. But once you maintain that with the way most people are using CBN wheels now, it's not too hard to maintain it. If you're using a jig, that is.
Yes. I use the Wolverine. I don't know if that's a great jig or not. It's been good for me, and I've got the tool that lets you, put it into the pocket and then roll it. I think I was just getting a little too aggressive with it. I was using an 80 grit wheel to sweep it back, and then I've got a 200 grit to put an edge on it. And I think I just got a little too aggressive. I needed to slow down, just take my time. So I need to get back to that because I want to get away from turning the way I turn. I turn the way I turn for a reason. But I want to get away from the tool that I use and start using different tools. And one of the tools is a bowl gouge. And I have some interest in turning some boxes and things like that. So I need to get back on that tool and get the swept back, or the Ellsworth, or however we want to call it, the Irish grind. I need to get that set up on my tool.
Yeah.
Bob is famous for turning everything with a roughing gouge.
Once it's sharp and it's safe.
Well, it's sharp and it's safe, and I had so many people make nasty comments about the roughing gouge that I thought, I'm going to prove a point. It can be used for anything. And unfortunately, most of my turning is spindle style work, right? Because I'm doing pins.
Yeah.
I'm not doing bowls. That would be dangerous. I'm not doing vessels, boxes. That would be ridiculous. That's why I want to get my bowl gouge fixed so that I can start doing. I'm not really interested in bowls right now, but I do want to move to some boxes. And in order to be able to work the boxes, I need to have a decent tool. What I've got would be great for rounding the outside, but once I get past that, no. And it was just to prove a point because I did mostly spindle/pin work, and it worked okay for me, but it's time for me to step it up. I can use the skew fairly well, but it's the bowl gouge that I really have an interest in learning. And I think you're right. Tuition is the way to go. I'm not sure how to do that in the Midwest just yet, especially with the impending pandemic. I haven't seen any classes or any one-on-ones offered, but I think that's probably going to be my next step. And I may actually hold off on grinding until I can do that, because I'm sure a decent instructor would be able to help me put that grind on there and show me the proper method for doing that. That would be safe. And that's important too.
Well, the first thing, I'm just glad that you clarified about using the bowl gouge on bowls as a no-no, because we've all seen the YouTube disasters with people using the roughing gouge, a spindle roughing gouge as it's now marketed as, on bowls, and people aren't aware of the reason why. Partly because of the size of the tool that's coming in contact with so much cutting edge is one of the reasons, and it's only a tang on the end of the bar going into the handle, as opposed to a bowl gouge that has a solid bar running down into the handle. And on the other thing you said, Bob, is don't forget there's a lot of online tuition available now thanks to the pandemic. So there's another consideration for people who can't attend meetings. So
I've heard that Rebecca DeGroot is doing some online training. I may have to look that up and see what I can learn.
Yes, yeah. She's looking for sponsorship.
That's true. That's true. No, you're right. There is a lot of online, and I, why that never even crossed my mind. I think the online training is phenomenal. It's a great way to go. It's very economical because you avoid the travel costs, you avoid the hotel stays, the food, etc. But I'll be honest with you, I'm a face-to-face style person. I'm kind of old school. I don't like to communicate with people via technology. I would almost rather see you face-to-face and learn from you face-to-face, because on the video I can see what you're doing, but in reality you watch me and you're like, oh no, Bob, turn that tool another 10 degrees, bring the handle back, and you're going to see what I'm doing, and you're going to be able to correct the error in my ways so much quicker if I'm in your presence. So I really think online training is great, but I think I would use that as a secondary. I really want to be in someone's shop, and I really want to learn. I want to learn face to face, hand to hand, because I think there's a benefit there.
Yeah, I agree completely.
There are still a few things going on. They just kind of have to limit the amount of people that can be in the space. For example, I just taught yesterday, as a matter of fact, a one-on-one turning class with a new turner who comes into Rockler pretty regularly, and we got to know him because he's always just buying new turning things, but really has no idea of basic tool control when you're talking about the high-speed steel and everything. So, I mean, we did a one-on-one session yesterday. It was only about 2 hours, but now he started out with just the Easy Wood tools, the 3 main Easy Wood tools, and then he had them in a couple different sizes. And he keeps showing me these pictures of these things that he's making. I was like, all right, these are looking pretty good, right? But he kind of admitted to me that everything that he made was kind of by accident. Like, he had a massive catch, and he's like, well, this is a new design opportunity, so I guess it's gonna be this now. And I was like, okay, cool, whatever. So we learned just rough and gouge yesterday and basic beads and coves with the spindle gouge. And obviously you're past that, but there are opportunities, especially if you do have turning clubs in your area. And I'm not talking about you necessarily specifically, Bob, but like anybody, if you've got a turning club in your area, there is always a type of mentor that's willing to share their knowledge and just kind of have this experience for you and to bring you into that craft. And then at the end of this week, I'll be flying up to Illinois and teaching at Bull Valley Hardwoods. I've got a class of 8 people there. So that should be interesting. But that's, again, just basic turning, like spindles, beads, and coves the first day. I'm going to try by the end of the first day to get them to do a little finial. And then second day is all bowls and platters. Third day, we're going to try to do a box if they're capable by that point. So, I mean, it's just intro to turning classes right now. But, I mean, there's always like mentors in clubs that are willing. And honestly, sometimes there's actually assigned mentors. They'll have them on the website as the listed mentor. If you want to learn how to turn, you just look up the website and they'll usually have their contact info on there.
I think for me too, in person would be great because I need somebody to help me break my bad habits. Somebody standing there and you're turning and they'll smack you in the back of the head and say, don't do that. Because honest, I mean, you kind of laugh, but really, you do need somebody to say that is going to cause you a catch and you're going to get hit in the face, right? I mean, these guys that are teaching, they've been there, they've done that, they know. And my bad habits, I need to get a bunch of those broken because before I get too serious, I need to get a bunch of those broken.
Yeah, especially if you're going from one type of tool to another, like from carbide to traditional. I kept having to very gently, let's lower your arm. We don't want to have that tool at 90 degrees.
See, that's what gets me with carbide. That's why I don't turn with carbide, because my muscle memory, I'll start out going in straight and then I'll drop the tail into that tool and boom, I lose it. And I just cannot get comfortable with it because I'm used to having the tool down at about a 45 or, give or take. But I need those habits broken.
Yeah.
But at least your bad habits, Bob, so then you need to address them yourself.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right, and I really, it's hard to address. You'll never fix yourself. You know what I mean? But when you meet with someone that you respect, and you're like, this guy is like an amazing turner, then he says, don't do that. For some reason, it sticks. You know what I mean? Or she. I don't want to be, male female here, because there are some phenomenal turners, male and female, and you see someone like that and you meet with them and you really respect their knowledge and their ability, and they say, Bob, do this, and that sticks for some reason. You remember that. For me, that's what I want. I really want to meet with I want to take some training from some established turners. So that's why
I find at any level, I've had tuition off several turners, and I find even when my own level was reasonable, I still went for further tuition, because you put 10 wood turners in a room and ask 10 accomplished wood turners to make 10 bowls. They will all do it similarly, but with their own little quirks and different things added in. So you will learn something different from each one one of the individuals might suit you exactly down to the style you want to do. But
yes.
Yeah, so go to several different people.
Mm-hmm. I think we're going to start working on that coming up this next year. I saved a lot of money not going to shows this year because there were none. So I think next year I may direct some of that money coming up in 2021 to getting some training, because I think I'm ready to step it up a little bit.
Yeah, it's money well invested into tuition. And plus, for me, I just find it's good to support the other turners, professionals that are out there making a living from it. So, helps get them back on track after everything that's been going on. So,
No, I agree.
Support the turners.
Mm-hmm. Michael, did we have a second guest?
Yes, my cat, Cinder, which is synonymous with pain in the ass. Yeah, she's out of the room now, so
walking all over your keyboard, wrapping around the mic.
Yeah, would have been my luck. She would have canceled the meeting, and all this would just go away. And
you're still recording, right?
Yes, I'm still. Well, yes, I'm still recording.
I just looked up Bull Valley Hardwoods. I thought, what might be kind of fun just to shoot up for the weekend and just to basically meet Rebecca in person and say hello. It's only 303 miles.
Is that
only?
Yeah, that's like a 5-hour drive.
Well, I guess pick me up on your way.
It's a little ways outside of Chicago, I guess.
Illinois doesn't seem.
It should be fun.
It's a big state. It's a big state. So I won't be seeing you next weekend. Sorry.
Maybe next.
You guys are so lucky. You have so many different events and tool suppliers and all sorts of things over there. Like, everything comes into Ireland is shipped in. There is a few tool suppliers, but going to events and things, I go to the UK a good bit. I was supposed to go over to you guys this year, and the Netherlands and Italy, all sorts of places. But you guys are really lucky over there. So 300 miles in a heartbeat, I would go.
Right, because you were supposed to be demonstrating at AAW this year, right?
I was. Heartbreak.
I know. Hey, I know the feeling.
Yeah, you were there too. Yeah. So unfortunate, but however, safety first.
Yeah. Next
Bob,
year.
You were going to demonstrate at AAW this year too, weren't you?
Who, me?
Yeah, you.
No.
No.
Not unless they had a class on bad technique. I might be able to demonstrate that one. No, sir.
That's next year, Bob.
I was honestly, I was wanting to go to AAW. I'd love to go. I wasn't sure if I'd be able to make it because it was literally right in the middle of an implementation at work. However, everything has kind of gotten shaken up right now because of travel restrictions, etc. So we'll see what happens 2021. And God, I'd love to get down there. Just if nothing else, just to walk around and look at, in awe at what other people are doing, because there are some amazing turners.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in 2016 was my first time over there at an event like that anyway, Bob. And I always, since I started wood turning, I always wanted to see the instant gallery at the AAW. Yes. So to walk into that area and see, as you rightly said, fantastic turners and all of the pieces, it was just mind-blowing. It was brilliant. And I got to meet Rebecca.
Yes, that's the
Yeah,
other
that's
thing.
the year we met.
Yeah, that's the other thing about AW is getting to meet everyone. All you hear these names thrown around: Doug Clues and Doug Thompson and blah blah blah, and you go and you actually get to meet these people, and there's something what's the word of kindred about that. I mean, it's an amazing experience, and I hope to make it in 2021. We'll see what happens with work. I mean, I've got to feed the family first, right? But if the opportunity arises, yeah, I'm going to make it.
Have they
See you
announced
there.
where
I'd love
that's
to.
going to be
What's that
for 2021?
Omaha?
Omaha. Yep, Omaha, Rebecca, you're right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, see you there.
Yeah. I know.
So,
I
Rebecca,
put my... Oh, sorry.
You've been awfully quiet during this. How about a question from you?
I've just been soaking it all in, listening to Pat's background. I'm usually used to just talking to him about what's current, so I'm enjoying this personally.
Okay.
Oh crud! I had a question, and now I don't remember what it was.
No problem. Well, we chat now and again, so there's nothing new to you from me. So,
Well, I guess I could ask a question while Rebecca kind of puts her thoughts back
I'm
together.
gonna find it.
Okay, well, I'll go ahead. Pat, I've had a chance to look through your Instagram and your Facebook, et cetera, and I've seen, you do a lot of piercing work. You do a lot of work with pyrography. Can you tell me about something that's maybe not on your resume, or something that you're maybe sort of a direction you're maybe moving? Your interest is obviously changing all the time and growing. So is there anything you can tell me about that?
yeah, I did a series, Bob, a few years ago, and I called it Raw. I'm sure you guys have heard of Max Brozzi. Max is a good friend of mine. And during our conversations, we were exploring making pieces straight off the lathe with no sanding. Sorry, straight from the tool with no sanding and no finish. So Max explored it, and I explored it to a degree, as in just where the need came in here was for really good tool work to finish it without leaving lots of lines and whatever. But if they were there, hence the name Raw, they were there. Now, it was unseasoned timber, and also by using unseasoned timber, it was turned to a wall thickness that would move but wouldn't crack. If it did, if the pit was included, it was part of the rawness of the material, and to show the beauty of the wood and how timber can actually move. If it was a hollow form, for argument's sake, and the growth rings were to one side, at the start it was more on one side than the other. It was just, for me personally here, to be able to watch a piece in the workshop moving over a period of weeks or whatever, I just found it really interesting. Because as wood turners at the start, we all strive for perfectly crisp angles, perfectly round beads, curves and shapes. So now I just found myself interested in going down the route of what would Mother Nature do with this piece when I took a piece of it away, so to speak. So yeah, kind of along that lines, you know.
Well, I like that, because really that does take you back to the roots of wood turning, because if you think about early wood turning with the treadle lathe, they didn't have sandpaper. I mean, they just had a raw piece of steel that they would go at the item with, and they would make a plate or a cup that they would sell to a person who was going to use it. And it wasn't smooth. It wasn't perfect. They had the lines in them. And so that is kind of interesting. I like that answer.
Yeah, it's natural, and as you said, back when wooden vessels were people's only choices, they weren't worried if it was sanded, if it was an undercut rim. It was a functional item to hold our food or whatever or drink from, and that was it. So yeah, but it's trying to develop that into an art piece as not just a piece that looks like a roughed out bowl, to develop it. So it's an area I want to pursue further. But at the moment, with the erosion series, I have a good few pieces going on there with lots of ideas to incorporate shapes and things into it. So I'll stick with that for a while. So,
do you find it's difficult to constantly be, you make art pieces, right? I mean, I make functional things, I make pins, but you make an art piece, and you're constantly trying to grow and develop. Do you find it's difficult to always kind of take that next step and outdo yourself and make this year's piece better than last year's piece? Is it tough?
Yeah. Well, I suppose my simple answer to that is, if I was to look at my first erosion piece, and I haven't made that many because they're so time consuming and because of work and everything else, not having the time that I want to put into each piece. if I look at my first piece in comparison to my last one, I can see where the transition is in the quality of the work, how I've transformed even in my approach. Maybe I've used different tools, a better understanding of it, because at the start I was trying to turn pieces down to 2mm, which I was managing to do. But what I found when I was doing the pyro carving on the spheres, I was just constantly trying to put out the fire. So now I'm aiming for 3mm, which doesn't sound much 1mm, but the scope that gives me to work with is far better. Mm-hmm. Now I've turned one recently at 4mm, and it's too heavy for what I want. I can do a nicer carving on it, but the time that extra 2mm or 1mm, I should say, puts into that piece is phenomenal. Mm-hmm. So it's all about the learning, progressing. So, and I think if you look at any artist from their original work to the work today, you could see maybe 10 pieces laid out, you would see the way their work has progressed. Maybe progress is the wrong word, just a transition from one level to the next, So, because there's some fantastic turners out there. 20 years ago, their work was phenomenal, and now they're still producing work that, how could it have got better? But it did, to say it was so good back then, So it's your own view and your own concept of whatever that you're looking at, I suppose.
So I've got a question for you regarding your work that you have done in the past. A part of the process of being an artist is that you create something, you show it, you sell it. Is there a piece that you have sold in the past that you regret letting go of?
Yes. And this was because of the technical challenge that I had created, Michael. My lathe between centres has a 51-inch capacity with the tailstock partly hanging off. Not recommended, by the way, when it was locked down. So I turned a goblet, the full capacity of that lathe, in one piece. So I turned the top of it, and I didn't use lathe steadies, by the way, because I didn't have any. So I turned it, and then I put the tailstock, a big piece of tissue, just down into the cup at the top of the goblet. And I literally turned it down along gradually, just holding onto it as I went down along. Now it took a period of time. And then I got a piece of yew, a branch, and I literally split it with the bandsaw, sanded the surface, and made a little shelf for this goblet to sit on. And I made a ring then, like a captive ring, to hold it at the top. And I was just so pleased with this that I said, and I brought it to an exhibit down south of Ireland. And it sold almost instantly for a pathetic price that I put on it. And regardless of what the price I got for it, I said, I really should have kept that, because I'd never heard of anyone making a goblet 51 inches before, and I really liked it because it was really nice. So, yeah, that's I'll always remember that one. So,
I'm seeing in the chat window for our meeting that I just stole Rebecca's question.
You didn't see her face when you asked that?
I didn't even know it. I'm sorry.
I was like, are you reading my document? Did I share this? I just had it pulled back up and I was like ready to ask. And then you go out and ask that question. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. But
I can give you a different answer, Rebecca.
Give her a better answer. Well, let's give Rebecca a better answer than you gave. Yeah,
give me the better one. Right. Well, as a follow-up question, now after that experience of kind of like regretting letting go of pieces, now do you find yourself kind of being a little bit more sentimental or thinking about that now with your turning, is whether or not you really do want to give up this piece or you really want to part with it? So do you have problems or do you have issues sort of letting your pieces go, or is it a thought that goes into that process a little bit more?
Yeah, well, okay, if I was to set out to make 5 bowls tomorrow, okay, like you guys, I could probably make 5 bowls handy enough. If somebody came in to buy those 5 bowls, I would be more than happy to sell them. If I make a piece such as one of the erosion pieces where I put 60 hours into that, because of the amount of work in it, you want to get a reasonable price for it. and I want to hold on to it and enjoy it for a while. Now, most of my pieces I have here in a display area. I don't like the word gallery, by the way, but I call it a display area. So when I come into the workshop now and again, I go into that room for whatever, and I'll see something, and I'll smile and say, yeah, I enjoyed making that, and it was a nice sense of achievement. If I put it up on the website and someone shows interest and wants to buy it, or in some cases because I put a picture on Facebook or social media and somebody shows interest when I haven't even advertised it, well, that's, almost like a pat on the back for me, oh, well done you, and I'm interested in your work, and how much is it? And then if they buy it, well, then that's even nicer. So, yeah, the sentimental value goes out very quick when you get the right price, let me tell you. So that's being realistic. Okay.
They call that the breakup price. What price is it that you'll break up with that piece? Yeah. I like the I like the idea of a display area because the way I look at it, and I don't turn the same type of things that you do, but as you walk into your shop and you walk past your display area and you look at it, I can almost see maybe that's an inspiration for you, right? Because you see something and you think, if I just change that a little bit, I have this whole new idea. So do you find yourself looking at your pieces and pulling inspiration and, then taking that to the next level or building the next piece based on what you've taken from your past, your history?
Well, basically, Bob, when I go down to that area, there's a window that I can look in from this side. And in the front of that window, I have 3 display cases. And I'm really lucky to say that I have one of those display cases is full of other artists' work. Jimmy Clues, Binfo, Harvey Meyer, several friends around the UK. And when I look at that, I'm just going to backtrack a little bit. Some people ask you, when you need inspiration, what do you do? And I will tidy the workshop as my first thing. But if I'm walking around and I happen to look at that case and I see the work from these other people, and it's not necessarily that I want to emulate what they've just made, but their work and their giving to the woodturning community kind of inspires me to get back at the lathe and make something. And it might be completely different to what I've just seen belonging to them, but it just boosts me back up to get out there and make some shavings. If that makes any sense to the answer.
No, it makes perfect sense.
Sorry.
It makes perfect sense. Yeah, it does. So I have another question, but I want to let Rebecca have a chance before Mike gets her question.
I have another follow-up question. Okay, so I know we talked about kind of the sentimental value, but now do you find yourself wanting to keep a little bit of each series? Because I have this thing where if I feel like I'm going to be doing a series, and maybe you don't anticipate that the work that you're going to be doing will end up as a series, like your erosion series or your other series that you've done in the past. Do you find yourself wanting to keep the original sort of, I guess, genesis to that series, just to kind of keep it as a sort of marking point of, this is where I started for this series and this is where I started for this series? Do you find yourself trying to pick pieces out and like keep them for yourself?
Yeah, well, I suppose my simple answer to that one is, the first of my series, if I've made 10 pieces in a series, I would like to hope that the last one, number 10, is far better than number 1. And I probably, not that I wouldn't sell number 1, I kind of would prefer the others because I would look at them as better quality. And I want to give someone something that is as good as I can possibly produce. And even though when I look at number 1, it was such an achievement for me at the time to make that, and thrilled I was able to produce something like this. And it's not very often I'm happy with a piece, but if I see something that I really like, but I will generally look back to number 1 and will be dissatisfied with it to some degree. Whereas number 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, I would hope is of a higher caliber that I would be happy to part with, that somebody can pick it up and look at it from any angle. And I hope they don't look at that little corner. I'm afraid if they look there, they'll see that blemish or whatever, So yeah. But,
that's why you need the
there's
clip.
Also, sorry, Bob?
I said, that's why you hide it behind the clip.
Exactly. It's like somebody's displaying something in their hand, and their hand never comes off a certain area. Have a look at it.
I would never do something like that.
Yeah. So.
Well, go ahead, Mike.
Oh, you sure?
Yeah, go ahead.
He's
Just
gonna
don't ask
steal
my
your
question,
question.
okay?
Yeah, I'm just going to steal your question. So at my skill level, I can make a box, I can make a bowl, I can make a platter, I can definitely make a pen. If I want to get fancy, I can throw an OG curve in. Yeah, I know. Do you have any advice on how to take turnings to that next level?
Yeah, experiment, I suppose, is the biggest thing, Michael. And part of the problem I see in wood turning with people, and especially new people, they want to make a bowl, and they really want to go out to their workshop and walk back in with a bowl in their hand. They've forgotten the bit in the middle. They haven't enjoyed the process. They haven't concentrated on how the tools work. They haven't concentrated on how the tools are sharpened. They haven't even concentrated on the piece of wood. They've gone out, I want to make a bowl, I want to bring it back in, I want to show whoever's in the house that I made something, I want to get it up on social media. But did you enjoy it? No. And my simple answer to people is, enjoy the journey. Forget about the end stop on it. If you're making a bowl, we'll just use that for example, and you get a dig in, you wreck it, and the first thing they want to do is take it off the lathe, get a new piece of timber. If I do something like that and I get a piece of timber that turns into be substandard, there's a bit of rot, a bit of decay in it, to me that's an opportunity to practice tool technique, to practice shapes, bring it right down to a toothpick. Get the most that you can from your timber. And by doing that, experimenting with your shapes, okay, I've seen something that Rebecca has made and I want to try that. Well, here's an ideal opportunity, because I'm using this piece of timber that I was going to put into the fire pile, and I'm going to practice that shape that Rebecca does, and I'm going to have a go at. You might make something completely different, but you're pursuing it. You're trying. Yeah, and just look around you. I often, because I write for a magazine in the UK, I often get the what am I going to do next? And I say, oh my God, I've done a good few articles at this point. What am I going to do next? And originally I would have went into Google and I'd looked up contemporary wood turning and all the different artists that I know looking for inspiration. And plagiarism is something I'll touch on in a minute if you don't mind. But I generally look to pottery or glass for shapes, designs, things that are incorporated in different mediums, and try to combine that into something that I can not call my own, but create an article out of it for somebody that can follow. And the reason I mention plagiarism is because one of my biggest irks in the wood turning industry is people who produce items, again, put it up on social media or whatever, YouTube videos, claiming ownership of the design and the process. Like everybody knows, I call Rebecca the critter lady. Everybody knows when you see something with 3 wonky legs on it, it's Rebecca's. There's lots of people have copied your work, Rebecca, and not given you credit for it, and that's just I really hate that. So like Rebecca is going to be full time with this, whatever, if she's not already, and making her living from it. Well, then she's going to need to be supported, not her ideas and her projects stolen from her and somebody else laying claim to it. So yeah, just give a little bit of credit to where you got your inspiration from. And in a recent article I just did where it was called a turquoise box, it was only published there last week, but I had done that article a number of months ago. But because the editor didn't want to clutter up the magazine with every article being a box, he said, I'll put it in a later time. And I said, fine. But a friend of mine had sent me over one of his boxes to photograph for him to put into another exhibit, and he was just having a problem with his camera. I said, send it over, and I took some pictures. So I took the pictures, but when I did the box, I realised there was parts of this box that I had done for the article were similar to my friend's box that I had photographed. So in my subconscious, I had stolen part of that design. So when I realised this and I wrote the article, I made sure there was a picture of his box went into the front of that article, and I credited him for part of the design and where I felt part of it came from. So it didn't cost me anything to do that, just recognising someone. People liked the box. I got good feedback on the article. So, what about it? And I didn't invent the wheel. So.
Anybody else have a question? I've got one if
who's
not.
Next?
I've always got questions. I'm enjoying this interview. And I just want to comment. I really liked your advice about practicing and not wanting. We are all about instant gratification, and I think that's one of the reasons why when I started turning, I got into small items. I could go out to the shop, and in an hour, I could come in with a finished item. And I think that is one of the things I need to fix about myself, is understanding that taking 2 to 3 days or 2 to 3 trips to the shop to finish something because you made 8 of them to get to the final one is really worthwhile because of all of the education that you're giving yourself while you're making it. And I think that's fantastic advice, and I really loved your answer. But I do have a question for you, and this is going to kind of become one of my signature questions just because I have a curiosity. But if you were to lay down your turning tools tomorrow and swear to never turn again, what would you do?
Ooh, I think it would have to be power carving. With maybe mini chainsaws, the likes of the saber-tooth tools.
Yes.
I couldn't work continuously with a tool that didn't have a plug on it, to be quite honest. Because in as much as I will take a block of timber and spend 60 hours on a very small piece of wood, I would like to see progress and not doing it by hand, whereas I like to be able to turn the switch and have that little bit of power behind the bit, so to speak. So, yeah, I think power carving, Bob, would be somewhere. Now, I did have an interest in glass blowing as a younger person, which I never followed through on. Because I had friends when I was involved with judo, there was friends of mine worked in Waterford Glass, and we used to meet up training and things. And I always said, I'd love to do this, but, obviously I didn't. So, yeah.
All right, fantastic. Thank you.
That could always be your retirement hobby.
Oh, I don't have the lungs for that, Michael, now, I can tell you. So, yeah. I'm at a ripe old age of 51 now. I know I don't look it, but however.
I'd probably end up going down the same path with the power carving. It's just so much fun, and the possibilities are limitless too. So you can take a piece of wood and you can turn it into anything you want. And I want to carve everything. I don't know the extent that you would go, but like I'm looking at surfaces in my house and different like objects that were already here before I got here. I was like, I could do something with that, or like I could make that look more interesting. Or I know it's not carving, but I was watching Trent Bosch's video or his demo that he did for AAW, and that faceted look on his vessels is just awesome, and I really want to do that now. And I was like, well, I don't just have the ability to do it with the sanding that he does with the power sander, but I can make it go a little bit further and actually carve away all that material now that I've got one of those giant discs. And I'm so excited just to be able to carve that. Like, my lathe is getting neglected a little bit. I'm feeling a little bit guilty, but no, it's fun.
Go ahead.
You could also put a sanding arbor into your lathe. The piece doesn't have to be on your lathe. You can hold the piece and hold it up against the rotating sander. Don't forget.
I know. I want to.
I had my heart broken over that. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Please finish, and then I'll tell my story.
Yo, go ahead, Bob. You're fine.
I was going to say I had my heart broken over carving, and I wasn't getting into traditional carving. I was doing a very simple form of carving called chip carving, embellishment, right? And at the house we lived in, my wife and I owned, it had 5-inch tall trim, just plain flat trim, all over the room, the family room. And I spent an entire winter carving that trim. I took each piece down, I sanded it, I refinished it, and then I would carve through it so that you would have the stain on the outside and the natural wood on the inside, and then I put a clear finish over it, and I rehung the trim. And I cannot tell you how many hours I put in one winter carving that entire room, above the fireplace, all around the floorboards, everything, right? Well, we moved, and that trim stayed with the house, and about 2 years after we moved, the house went for sale again. And of course, when they sell a home here, they always do the online, you can pan through the house and look at all. Someone had painted all of my trim. Every bit. It looked so beautiful.
Oh, no.
And they painted it white, every bit of it. Yeah. And you could not see. You lost all of the aspect, because I used a light oak finish on it, but there was a lighter wood behind, right? And it just looked so gorgeous with that. with the contrast in my mind. But to them, they wanted it painted, and so it broke my heart. Every bit of it was painted white. Every bit of it. Just, you couldn't see any of it. All that work gone. So I don't know.
Well, Bob, that's something. Sorry, go ahead, Michael.
Is that the picture that you have on your YouTube channel? Is the background? That's a piece
of one of the pieces that I carved. That's the pattern, the rosette that I put throughout some of the trim. Right.
Go ahead, Pat.
I was just going to say, it's like when people enter pieces into a competition. Unless your work is very unique or a very high standard, you're making something for somebody else to like. Now, you really loved that, Bob, but whoever obviously bought the house wasn't overly impressed and they tried to cover it up with paint. But, you know, if you're going to make something that you like to sell, you're going to have a lot of stuff around your shelves for a long time. But if you make something that other people like, well, then you have a better chance of selling. You know, it's okay when you get up to a certain level, like Mr. DeGroot or who are artistic pieces, you'll shift your stuff, no problem. But, you know, until you achieve that status, I'm afraid you have to make what other people like, not what you can spend hours upon hours enjoying making. So,
I just need to buy that house back and sand it all down, right?
Good plan. You should have went in and bought the skirting boards off them, all the trim.
You know, I thought about removing it and just putting up other trim, but then I thought, what am I going to do with it, right? I mean, it's for this room. It may not ever fit another room, so I left it.
Yeah. You have a project for this winter.
That's right.
So now, Pat, I know you do a lot of time in teaching and training and tuition with others. And I believe I saw either a picture or a post of you with an up-and-coming turner by the name of Caitlin the Cat.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
She is quite the little turner. I've been watching her now for at least a year and am very impressed with her skills.
Yeah, Caitlin is a wonderful young lady, and I think Caitlin is probably still only around 16 years of age. And she has just come on in leaps and bounds with her ability. She has a new lathe. She has had lots of good support from people as well. Yeah, she's really one to keep watching, Michael, I would say. So watch out, Rebecca. The Female Woodturner Society has competition.
Hey,
so
the more the merrier.
Yeah. Yeah, she puts up regular YouTubes and things. Her dad and mom are just fantastic the way they support her, you know. So, yeah. She, I don't know if you did seeing the project where she made all the bracelets. Or, sorry, she asked for bracelets to be made. So, we had one of the nights there in my workshop, a few friends, when we get together. I said, right, guys, because it was my workshop hosting it that night, I designate the project. So I said, we're going to make some bangles, and I'm going to bring them over to Caitlin when I went to the show in the UK. So I think it was 4 of us made 17 bangles that night for her, so it was good fun. So, but she got them from all over the world. It was a brilliant project. So yeah, an interesting guest for you to have on here, actually.
Ooh,
sounds like it.
Yeah. Yep.
And it just amazes me.
Do you see a lot? Go ahead, Bob.
I was just going to say, it just amazes me how the community gets behind, you know, when she put out the notice for the bangles, how so many people got behind that and supported her. And it just blows my mind, the generosity in the community. You just don't see that in so many of the other communities.
I agree completely, Bob. I always say wood turning is a fantastic community, but it's an even better family.
Because you think about wood turning, it's a very solitary thing. Most of the time when you turn, you are by yourself. You know what I mean? But the family aspect, I always tease when I go to the shows, it's like going to a family reunion, but you like all your relatives because you love everybody there. I mean, it really is.
Yeah. No, it's fantastic. And, you know, as good as the Zoom has been, I really feel I've missed out this year because I have so many friends in the UK and across on your side that I've missed out on seeing and meeting up, you know. But, yeah, Zoom has been the savior this year, so.
Yeah. Back to the tuition. Do you have a lot of people that are learning that are in Caitlin's age group, or would she be like the youngest person you're teaching?
Well, Caitlin is in the UK, Michael. I don't actually teach her, but she does have an open
Oh,
invite.
okay.
She does have an open invite to come over here. I've told her mum and dad that whenever they're over. It's another little pet hate of mine that there's not enough done on this side to encourage the youth. Some of the organisations are trying, but I'm sorry, they're not doing enough. I love what the AAW does with the kids turning at the Symposium. Mm-hmm. I think that's brilliant. Anything that encourages the youth, because, you have to remember they're going to be the future of this. So, there's not enough done, basically. Like, pick up any magazine. You pick up any wood turning magazine or woodwork magazine, and I know people talk about safety with tools and machinery and whatever, but teach them properly. Mm-hmm. And, but there's not enough in any of these things, articles about it or showcasing it more in schools and things. So,
Is traveling between Ireland and the UK becoming more difficult with Brexit, or is it the same as it has been?
There's no real impact at the moment.
Okay.
It's just like I can get to some of the destinations I go to. Like, I have to drive to Dublin. I'm in the southeast of Ireland. I drive to Dublin 1.5 hours, get on a plane, and 45 minutes would probably be the longest plane flight I would have to endure. It's just a hassle. Now, I do bring some tools with me in the hold of the plane, but usually if I'm going over somewhere, I have friends in different areas and I can borrow the basic tools off of them, or just there's always someone in the club that I know that I don't have to bring in abundance, just maybe a couple of my signature tools, not mine personally, but tools that I use as my predominant tools here. So, so it's good that way. Again, it goes back to the good friends in the woodturning community to help me out on these things. So
that should be fun. I agreed for my Bull Valley hardwood this weekend. I agreed not to bring a checked bag and just use the tools that they have available there. So
hopefully they have a good sharpening system there, because
I know.
You're
Well,
need
I mean,
an edge.
it's a full store, and their wood turning studio is it's all set up with their 8 lathes and everything you would need for the lathes. So they've got the sharpening area and everything should be good, but I'm hoping we can go in there and I can kind of get a handle on what they're working with. And he sent me a picture of all the tools, and it's like a basic tool layout, like roughing gouge, bowl gouge. It looked like he had a spindle gouge, and a few other things, like with some carbides and some hollowing tools. And it's just going to be interesting. I'm so used to my own tools that this should be fun. But I also don't want to be that teacher that goes in with all of my specific tools, and then it's like, okay, good luck with your tools that are completely different from mine.
It would be an experience.
So, I don't know. It won't be that situation like, well, if I had all your tools, then I could produce a piece like you. It's like, well, no. You're going to have the same things as I have.
If anyone from Bull Valley Hardware is listening, do me a favor, run out to Harbor Freight and buy some cheap rotten tools and leave those there for Rebecca as a joke. I know you sell quality stuff, but go get some junk for her and just really shake her up a little bit.
Don't do that.
But I find, Rebecca, that I think it's good practice. Like, I have a variety of different brands of tools there. So if I'm doing it, we just say a large bowl, and I have 3 or 4 bowl gouges out, and there might be different manufacturers, parabolic, V-flute, whatever. I just sharpen them all up. So when I'm turning that larger bowl, I'm picking up a different tool rather than going to the grinder every time, and I'll exhaust those sharp edges. But where I benefit from that also is I have to maybe turn the parabolic flutes slightly different to the V-flute. So when I go somewhere else and I'm using another tool, it kind of it's ingrained in me I've used the other tools to practice with them. So, don't put yourself into pigeonhole what you're using with just one particular tool all the time. Keep using a variety. You will benefit from that.
Yeah, and that's actually kind of another reason that I wanted to do that is just because I have my specific tools. Those are the ones that I use all the time. And then if I'm doing like a one-on-one class like I did yesterday, those are the tools that I'm also teaching this person because he doesn't have his high-speed steel tools yet. So now he wants those specific tools that he used. Like, what was the measurement on that? What was the flute on that? Like, what was the length of the handle on that? And I was like, okay, here's everything that you used yesterday to the T. And now he's going to go out and buy those very specific tools where he might find that he likes another type of tool. So, I mean, it's all a learning experience. And a lot of it is just personal preference too. Like before I had my roughing gouge, I did all my roughing with my 1/2-inch spindle gouge. It was awful, but it was what I was used to. I mean, that's even what I demoed just because I didn't have a roughing gouge until last year at AAW when Tim Wadley was like, here, take this. Yeah. So it was one of those things like, it is what it is, and it's what you have access to. So you learn with what you have, and then you adapt based on that. And I think it's important to kind of like branch out from that when you have the ability to do so. So.
No, I have to honestly say I've truly enjoyed this interview, Pat. I really did. I was unfamiliar with you or your work prior to Rebecca announcing that you were going to join us for this episode, and I got a chance to go out and look around. And chatting with you today has just been wonderful. I've really enjoyed it, and I want to thank you for coming on the show and joining us today.
Oh, you're very welcome. I really enjoyed it too. So, feel free to drop me a line anytime, guys. I'm glad to help. And, I have no problem. I have so many good friends in wood turning that I ask for advice. And, people need to know no matter what level you're at, don't be afraid to ask somebody for advice. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Very welcome.
So, in keeping with tradition with our show, at the portion where we're starting to wrap up, we all do dad jokes. I don't know if you're familiar with dad jokes or not, but I think they're pretty universal. It's just terrible jokes or bad puns. So I don't know if Rebecca prepared you for that or not.
She did, and she said to me about getting some bad dad jokes was Rebecca's words, just so we're clear on that. It's not hard to find bad dad jokes because they're all bad. So I have two for you, okay, which are really bad. Okay, so my dad said the shovel was a groundbreaking invention. Okay, yeah. See, how bad is that? Okay, so number two, aptly named. Have you seen the movie Constipated yet? Actually, it hasn't come out yet. Sorry, I apologize. Delete it.
Oh no! The dad jokes stay.
I think Holly Denny takes the cake for the joke that was most risque on the show. That one didn't even come close.
well, actually, Bob, I did actually look up bad Irish dad jokes. And no, not before 10 p.m. at night. Sorry. So. Yeah.
So, Bob, do you have one ready?
I do. It turns out I'm addicted to collecting magazines. My therapist says it sounds like I have a lot of issues.
Oh, terrible.
It's a bad day.
Terrible.
Okay, guys. I'm scared.
Rebecca, how about you?
I tried catching fog the other day. Missed.
Oh, jeez. Oh, my God. Oh. It's really bad when the person laughs at herself.
Yeah.
You should see me when I try telling these jokes to my students, and they're just all sitting there like, really?
Michael, it's up to you to save the day.
I actually have a listener joke to present tonight. This one from Rosetta Hahn. And it says, 2 cowboys are lost in the desert. One of them sees a tree in the distance that's draped in bacon. "It's a bacon tree. We're saved," he says. He runs to the tree and is shot up with bullets. It wasn't a bacon tree. It was a ham bush.
Oh, I don't feel so bad about my jokes now, to be honest, after those.
You shouldn't. You shouldn't.
Oh my god. Oh, wow. I would just like to compliment you on a great fun show, but you really need to look at the comedy aspect of it.
Careful, I may have to break out my big butt joke.
Okay. This is going downhill.
This is a repeat from last week. It's what has two butts and kills people.
Okay.
An assassin.
Okay. Oh, was that a tumbleweed just blew by there?
Yeah, but that one had Rebecca in stitches last week. She laughed for about 2 or 3 minutes after that one.
I don't think it's not too hard to make Rebecca laugh. In all fairness,
I'm easily entertained.
Oh, brilliant! It's good fun.
Yes, it is.
So, Pat, would you like to share how everybody can find you online?
Facebook, Pat Carroll Woodturning, Pat Carroll _Woodturning on Instagram, or just email me at patcarrollwoodturning@gmail.com. All very original names.
Just about like Rebecca.
Hey.
And if anybody is interested in meeting some fantastic turners, listen to me probing them with very intimate questions, meet the woodturner@gmail.com. And that's every second week.
Oh, so every other week you do that?
Yeah, it's tonight with Andrew Hall of the UK, also known as the Hat Man, and it's going to be good fun. And I also do remote demos. If anybody is interested, just contact me through the website.
Is there any kind of limit to the number of viewers that you'll have in for the Meet the Woodturner?
Well, this is the second night of my own venture into it, and currently I have 280 people, contacts. Now, how many show up tonight is going to be scary. I think we had, for Jimmy, I forget what it was, to be honest with you. I had to actually get the larger package, but 500 is the limit. So,
Okay.
Yeah. If
Wow.
I get 500, yeah. I was very anxious today sending out the email to 280 odd people. But yeah, so join in some evening. You're free. It's a bit of fun. It's not, it's like what you guys are doing here. It's a chat, so getting to know people. So
Yeah.
Nice. And Rebecca?
I know, so original. But Facebook and YouTube, Facebook and YouTube as Rebecca DeGroot, and another YouTube channel that I still have yet to post an intro video on. It's Rebecca's Up to Something, and it's going to be more of a vlog style. Instagram is at Rebecca_DeGroot. Let me figure out how to read my own name. My website, RebeccaDeGroot.com, which for whatever reason I cannot get into to edit, and I'm having a lot of trouble. So eventually it'll be edited and updated and everything, and hopefully I'll actually have a list of all of the remote online demos that I've been doing too. And then Etsy is RebeccaDeGrootStudio, which a little break from tradition here. I know you'll be happy to hear. But I'll actually have things for sale on there. And pretty soon I'm going to be posting those mushrooms that I was talking about earlier on my Etsy page.
You've said several times now that you're going to have new stuff on your Etsy page.
Yes, and you know what? I posted more pendants last week, and then I did post... No, I didn't post. I brought my blanks, my skateboard blanks that I keep saying I'm going to put up there. I brought them to the photo backdrop and then was reminded that I had to leave the house. So I had to run away, and then I haven't gotten to take actual pictures of those blanks. So that will be coming soon. I swear it will happen.
Hashtag board meet.
Hashtag board meet.
And Bob?
You can find me on YouTube and Instagram at RJBWoodTurner. And you can find me at my vlog channel over on YouTube at WhatchaDoinBob.
And I am on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all are Lost River Pens, and you can find my work at www.lostriverpens.com. So I believe we have come to the end of today, but like we said, we may have a Pat Carroll Part 2 in the near future. Maybe next week, who knows?
No problem at all. I'd be glad to help.
You guys are just
So I
trying
wanna
to get rid of me.
I want to thank Pat again for joining us. It's been a lot of fun having him on here today. Great turner, great guy, and we look forward to having him again in the future. So until next time, everybody, you all have a good week, and get out into your shop and make something. Make something.
Bye.
Goodbye. Still Rebecca's idea.
Don't